Welcome to RelyLocal Frederick Business Radio Spotlight. For the next 30 minutes, you will hear fast-paced interviews, unique perspectives, and valuable insight from real people who believe that empowering local business is everybody's business. This show is about the backbone of America, small businesses right here in and around the communities where we live, work, and play. And now, your host, Caressa Flannery, brings you RelyLocal Frederick's Business Radio Spotlight.
Hello, and thanks for joining us today. This is Caressa Flannery, your host or hostess for the RelyLocal Business Spotlight. And I'm sure a lot of people out there are wondering what RelyLocal is all about. And we are a grassroots campaign to support local businesses in the Frederick County area. A healthy community depends on a healthy economy, and both completely depend on the local businesses in Frederick. Simply put, more money spent with a local business stays here, about 68%, where much less money spent with national chains stays in the area, only about 14%. And money spent online, well, that simply leaves us forever. To us at RelyLocal, supporting local businesses doesn't stop with the economy. It is all about creating a stable and vibrant community. Frederick businesses create jobs, tax revenue for schools and parks and roads, while offering diversity in the marketplace with unique products and services that aren't found in those big box stores or in the chain restaurants. And not to mention, these local businesses are owned by the very people who sponsor our Little Leagues, who donate to our local charities, and volunteer for our community events. And they also sponsor those community events. They give back to the community in countless ways. You rely on them, but can they rely on you? You don't have to break the piggy bank to support a local business. Refocusing just $20 of your current spending toward local businesses can have a major impact on our community. And folks, we are here today with a member of RelyLocal, Mount Olivet Cemetery. And we have with us Ron Pearcey. He is the superintendent of Mount Olivet. And Ron, welcome to the RelyLocal Business Spotlight.
Thank you, Caressa.
Yay. Well, we're really excited to talk with you today because, one of those subjects that people probably don't really want to talk about is, death and dying and what to do, when you're in that situation or you have a loved one who is in that situation. And, before we get into a lot of that kind of stuff, I want to, have folks learn a little bit about you. You tell us a little bit about your role with Mount Olivet and how you have served the cemetery over the years.
Okay, I'm the superintendent and also secretary-treasurer, so I wear a couple hats.
You're a busy boy.
Yes. And I'm in charge of the overall maintenance of the cemetery and all the financial and accounts receivable, accounts payable, so forth, and taking care of payroll for our employees. I have been at Mount Olivet since 1966.
That's the year I was born. Oh,
my
goodness.
Making me feel old.
I'm sorry.
That's all right. Actually, I'm from Thurmont. I graduated from Thurmont High School in 1964. And I was employed with J.M. Buckheimer Company for a while. And after I left that employment, I met Mr. Bob Danner, who worked for the unemployment office. And he actually said there was a position available at Mount Olivet. And so I went up and met the superintendent at that time, Mr. Robert Klein, and he hired me, and I've been there since February 1966.
Wow.
So
wow.
47 years
wow.
this February, and I've been superintendent since 1982. So it's been...
That's incredible.
Yes.
I mean, that's a long-standing commitment, and, it's just amazing that you've put so much time and energy into the role, into the work there. So let's talk a little bit about the history of Mount Olivet Cemetery. Why and how was Mount Olivet Cemetery formed in Frederick? Because it is, such a beautiful place. And, let's talk a little bit about how it came to be.
Okay. We actually got started in 1852, but before that, cemeteries in Frederick were graveyards next to churches. There was the All Saints Episcopal, there was the Lutheran, had two cemeteries, and Presbyterian had two, and the Methodist Episcopal also had a cemetery. Well, those cemeteries reached their capacity, and they all got together and formed a committee. From those church members, formed a committee and went out to seek ground and funding of how they could start another cemetery. Well, they was able to actually find a piece of property on the south end of town that belonged to John Lotes, who was a well-known benefactor in Frederick. And they purchased this ground by selling shares of stock. They sold these shares of stock for $10 a share, and
Wow.
and $20 a share. And then actually, when the time came when the cemetery was developed, they would actually go back and they either get a 12 grave lot for those shares, or they would earn an extra $5 dividend. Well, most of them turned their shares of stock in for cemetery plots, and that gave us enough capital to actually lay off the cemetery, buy the tools and equipment that we needed. So that's basically how we started, and we're still run the same way.
Wow.
The same churches.
I know, that's incredible. I mean, that's a really neat story for a lot of people to know, because
Yes.
there's so much historic value, with Mount Olivet Cemetery, and I mean, there's so many people buried there. So it's definitely got the
Yes, we have over
historical
40,000
value.
burials.
I know, it's incredible. So with all that being said, who actually owns the cemetery?
Well, actually, when someone buys any piece of property, whether it could be a mausoleum crypt or a niche or in-ground burial space, they actually become part owner in the cemetery. They're actually given a deed to that property, just like you would a piece of
Just like
property.
if you bought a home or
Yeah.
whatever. Yeah.
Exactly the same.
Yeah.
Right.
Wow, that's incredible. So so the community actually takes part in the ownership of the cemetery.
exactly,
I mean, when they purchase a plot or a niche or something in the mausoleum, they actually
They become
are
part owner, and they
a co-owner.
and that entitles them to vote for the board of directors
Wow.
or run as a board of directors, whichever they prefer.
Yeah, that's great. So how active then is Mount Olivet, all these years later? And people probably wonder, is there even space available left in that cemetery?
Oh, yes. Our forefathers had, they could tell that this was going to be something that was going to be needed in the community for many years to come, and they had the foresight to buy enough land and property that
Right.
would last for many generations to come. And I tell everybody now, we probably have enough ground to last us at least 300 years.
Wow.
Yes,
Oh
that
my
is
God.
incredible.
From now? You mean from
now
this
on,
point?
From this point on, with the
Wow.
mausoleums that we're building, which saves ground space, and the burial, cremation's a big thing right now. So we're doing a lot of columbarium niches and so forth like that. So that really extends the life of Mount Olivet.
Wow, that's really great. Well, I know that Mount Olivet obviously does burials, but what
Yeah.
other additional services for the graves does Mount Olivet provide? I mean, talk a little bit about all the different services that Mount Olivet
Right.
provides, and then we'll go to a break and we'll come back and pick up with that.
Okay. Want me now?
Yeah, just talk a little bit about
Okay,
some
the
of them.
services that we provide is actually what I said with the in-ground burial and the mausoleum burial, and then the cremation spaces and so forth like that. But we offer endowments, which a lot of cemeteries don't allow, where you can actually plant shrubbery around your lot, and you can also do your
And
own
make it
little
pretty.
plantings around
Right.
your gravestones and all that, and plus our chapel services that we provide. And
Right. Well, I tell you what, let's stop there.
Okay.
Let's pick up and we'll talk a little bit more about some of the chapel services and the additional things
Okay.
that Mount Olivet provides in the community. And we'll be right back with Ron Pearcey from Mount Olivet Cemetery.
Every town needs a place where people can come to relax, talk, and enjoy each other's company. From open mic night to book signings to local music, Holy Grounds Cafe is the perfect place to meet friends, hang out, enjoy conversation, and savor the finest coffees, blended drinks, and food in a relaxed, warm atmosphere. Holy Grounds Cafe uses all natural products with no artificial colors, sweeteners, or preservatives. Their trained baristas know that using the finest ingredients ensures a superior cup of coffee. And be sure to check out their drink of the month. It's more than a cup of coffee, it's an experience. Located right on the square in Emmitsburg, Holy Grounds Cafe is a blessing of a cafe.
Holy Grounds Cafe features open mic night the first Friday of every month. Come share your gifts with the whole crowd at Holy Grounds Cafe. That's Holy Grounds Cafe, located on the square in Emmitsburg. Go Green Products is your one-stop green-friendly store providing you with organic and natural products. All of our products are all natural, organic, energy-saving, biodegradable, recycled, or recyclable. Shop with the confidence of knowing our products are good for you and your family and the environment. Visit us at our store in Eastgate Shopping Center just off East Market Street near the airport, or call us at 855-7-GO-GREEN. Be sure to check out our website too at www.gogreenproducts.co.
Welcome back. This is Caressa Flannery, your host for the RelyLocal Business Spotlight, and we are here today with Ron Pearcey, who is the superintendent of the historic Mount Olivet Cemetery that's been in our community for decades and decades. And we're talking a little bit about some of the services and whatnot that Mount Olivet provides. So Ron, let's talk about the specific types of burials that Mount Olivet is providing for folks there at the cemetery.
Okay.
Since you have so much space left,
yes.
and you have these beautiful mausoleums, we want to let people know that their final resting place can be at Mount Olivet Cemetery.
Well, actually, in the last, I'll say 10 years, cemetery industry has changed a little bit. It says leaning more towards cremation burials. A lot of people are opting for that now. But still, we offer for cremation burials. We actually offer where they can have their cremations either placed in the ground or in the mausoleum, and then they can also have a marker or etching on the glass front niches or a bronze plaque, or there's many choices that they can choose from to actually handle a cremation burial. So it doesn't have to be something where someone gets cremated and they're basically, you don't have no place where you can actually go and visit in years to come, or there's nothing
like
inscribed.
They're not just in an urn on someone's shelf or something like that.
Exactly.
They would have a place that
Yes,
your
that's
family
true.
can go and
Right.
visit.
Right.
Okay.
So that's the biggest change I've seen in the industry is cremation. But there's still a lot of people doing the typical burial, and we still have majority of them. We haven't changed as much as other parts of the country. Mount Olivet is still, with the amount of property we have, we're still able to foresee that we're going to have a lot of space for doing traditional burials as years to come.
Right. And, I know that you guys do, the additional services or provide things, for people, in families. You talked about the endowments, where they can actually, come in and, the grave can be taken care of, in other words.
Yes, right. They put up so much money and it's put into a fund, and the money is always there in case something needs to be done to that lot.
Right. Like if there's crack or something like that,
Yes,
it helps
right.
with things like that.
Right, the grave sinks unexpectedly or
Right.
something like that. We fix anyway, but with endowed care, you opt to have it done quicker.
Yeah. Now, are you getting into like the floral service and that type of
We're
stuff,
doing
or-
some of that now. We're doing some flower designs on our own for the mausoleum crypts we're doing, and we also provide flower vases on monuments. We also sell monuments, and a lot of people, when they buy their monument, though, we allow them to kind of pick out what they want. They can actually, a lot of people actually put their family history and pictures on a stone.
Yeah.
They put down emblems
Make
of
it
what
their
they
own,
did. If
just-
they were golfers, they put golf on there. Their favorite baseball, football team emblems
Right.
are on there.
You can
And
personalize
right.
it.
And they put vases on the stone, which then we actually endow those vases if they want us to. So we offer that service too. So
Okay. And that makes it nice because I think, a lot of times people don't necessarily, when they go back to a grave, they want it to look nice. They want to, spend a little time and put a little energy into it,
Yes.
for that loved one that they lost.
Right.
I imagine you get a lot of visitors to the Mount Olivet Cemetery.
Yes, constantly.
Yeah,
Yes.
all day long. I would
Yes,
imagine.
all day long,
Yeah,
constantly.
yeah.
Right.
And as far as burials are concerned, as I said early on, it's something that a lot of people don't want to think about, dying and whatnot. But I think pre-planning, for what's going to happen, it's imminent, that it's going to happen, actually can alleviate a lot of stress for people that they leave behind. So the pre-planning part of what Mount Olivet helps your customers with, why don't you go into a little bit of detail about how that works?
Well, we pre-plan for a lot of things in life, like our children's secondary education, and we do a will, and a lot of times people forget that they have to do some pre-planning for the cemetery. And we offer a lot of pre-planning things for people to help them through this here. We got some ideas that will really help them along as far as picking out what they need to have, because eventually you're going to need to have a vault, and you're going to need to pay for your opening, closing, and buy a monument, and so forth like that there. So it's best to pre-plan that there. And when the time comes, you won't be putting the burden on someone else. You pick out what you want rather than letting your children, not that they will fight over it, but a lot of times that happens. They just can't make that decision.
Yeah. Because it's you making the decision, and you're helping them at a time when they're grieving and they're
a terrible
just
time.
Stressed. Everybody's stressed, and
Exactly.
they're biting each other's heads off potentially. And
Yes,
I mean, I've been through, obviously, close relatives dying and things like that, and so I know how that can happen. And I think the pre-planning services are so important. And I know you guys just came out with a video recently that can be found on the front page of your website.
Yes.
That goes into a little bit of detail, and I know you have some people on there that have talked about how the pre-planning services were really important for their families. So I think that's great that you all offer that and alleviate that stress. And take
it's
that
just like
off.
the one gentleman says on there about taking the burden off of his daughter. Questioned him about it. Had he done all this here? And he said, well, not all of it. She says, well, Dad, I want you to go ahead and take care of this, so I don't have to worry about it.
Yeah, and that's great that she came to him.
Take the burden off of her, right?
Yeah, that's awesome. Okay, so again, this is kind of a topic that a lot of people don't necessarily want to even think about.
No, the last thing on their mind.
But it is so important, and we want people to know that Mount Olivet Cemetery is there to help them and to get them through, all of that. And I imagine, the economy probably has some things to do with, them, because they probably look at it as, an extra thing in a lot of ways, but they really should be thinking about it and considering it. And I know that you guys do help with some financing, and you've got some specials that you run and things like that. So why don't you talk a little bit about some of that?
Well, the thing of it is, a lot of people think we have mausoleum burial. A lot of people think that is more expensive than in-ground burial. Well, actually, it's not. It's actually a lot less in cost. And of course, there's not that much maintenance to taking care of the mausoleum building like it is the in-ground. You're always going to have the grass to mow, and you're going to have someone do something. But these buildings are really cost effective, and so we pass that cost on to the consumer.
And they are beautiful.
Yes,
those mausoleum buildings.
Yes,
I mean, just as a final resting place, really, really beautiful. And the construction that they did. I mean, I've been out there a number of times and seeing them from the inside and out, and they are just a fabulous.
Air conditioning is a great place to go and sit and visit your loved one.
Right.
It's perfect setting.
Yeah, definitely. At a time when they're, grieving and over the loss of that loved one, it's a nice, relaxing environment, I think, with the fountain in the middle.
It's tough to go out there now in the cemetery when it's 100 degrees outside.
Oh, I bet.
Or when it's below freezing, where you go in these buildings and they're heated in the wintertime and they're air conditioning in the summertime. So it's nice.
I'm sure people are, they probably just need to be a little bit more educated on the differences and, the fact that they can be more affordable or affordable overall.
They are affordable.
And as far as financing, you guys can
we do
help
our own
them.
in-house financing.
Great.
Yes,
Well, listen, we're going to go to another break.
Okay.
We will be back with Ron here shortly, but I just want to remind everyone that the Source Radio Network is on Facebook. You want to become a fan today if you can, and RelyLocal Frederick, Maryland is also on Facebook, and we'll be right back with Ron Pearcey.
To have a pond in our backyard.
My friend Jack has one with pretty fish and beautiful plants and peaceful waterfalls.
That's a great idea. With our busy lifestyle, peaceful sounds great.
For 4 generations, the Thomas family has been turning backyards into dreams. Lily Ponds has everything you need to start or maintain your water garden. Just off Route 85 on Lily Ponds Road, come see our acres and acres of plants, fish, pumps, and more. Lily Ponds, where dreams become a paradise. Lily Ponds is a member of RelyLocal Frederick.
Welcome back. This is, again, Caressa Flannery, your host for the RelyLocal Business Spotlight, and we are here once again with Ron Pearcey. He is the superintendent for the historic Mount Olivet Cemetery, which is the the burial site of Francis Scott Key.
Yes.
We didn't really talk about, some of the notables that are buried there. Real quick, why don't you just, give us a little highlight of, if somebody came into Frederick and, they wanted to take a look at the cemetery and some of the notables that are buried there.
Yes, Francis Scott Key is buried there, right at the entrance to the cemetery. It wasn't his original burial space. He died in Baltimore in 1843 at his daughter's house at Pearcey and was buried in her crypt there in Baltimore. He was later moved to Mount Olivet because it was always his wish to be buried in Frederick, where the mountains were visible. So in 1866, he was brought to Mount Olivet and placed on a gravesite out on Area H, which is out in the center of the cemetery. But from visitors coming, they thought he should have a more notable burial spot. So in 1895, the Key Monument Association asked the children nationwide to save their nickels, pennies, and dimes in order to erect a monument. And in 1898, that materialized, and the Key was moved up front, and a big monument was placed on top of him, which is very visible.
Wow. Yeah,
Yes.
that's an interesting and cool story that
Yes,
I'm sure it's in the history books.
Oh, yes. It certainly is, yep.
I know, and that's one thing, we didn't really point it out, but, the cemetery has the nickname, the Cemetery Beautiful.
Yes.
Because of the fact that it is just a beautiful cemetery. And then you've got Barbara Fritchie that's buried there.
Yes, Barbara's buried there.
Yeah, and they've got the World War II.
First governor of Maryland, Thomas Johnson.
Governor of Maryland. Yeah,
Yes.
Thomas Johnson. And that's the high school that I went to.
Yes,
So here in Frederick,
And a lot of Confederate soldiers from the southern states who died at the hospitals in Frederick from different wars around the area.
Yeah.
Different battles, I should say, not wars, but from the Civil War.
Right.
From the Battle of Gettysburg and from South Mountain and Antietam, Battle of Monocacy. There's probably over 1,000 of them. Confederate soldiers buried there.
Yeah, I know, and that's just remarkable, seeing them in that long line,
Yes,
along the fence there. And, I would imagine history buffs and people who, I know people who like to go into cemeteries,
Yes.
honestly, and I have been in some myself, and I know people who do genealogy, go into cemeteries all the time, and Mount Olivet is absolutely one of the most beautiful cemeteries that I have ever seen. So we're very lucky to have Mount Olivet in the Frederick community. So
big tourist attraction.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, with all the history here in Frederick, that is certainly part of it. But okay, so obviously there's the burials, there's pre-planning. You've got the in-ground and mausoleum burial and all that. But there on the cemetery's property is also one of the most beautiful chapels I have ever seen as well. So let's talk a little bit about the chapel and some of the services that I know not necessarily just for burials, but services that you provide there at Mount Olivet.
Well, actually, the chapel was built in 1911, and it was just christened in 1998 after all those years.
Wow.
It was finally christened as the Key Memorial Chapel after Francis Scott Key. And we actually have regular services in there for burials. Most of them are out of town. And a lot of people who are non-denominational, that doesn't belong to have any church affiliation, they'll ask to use this chapel, and we provide those services. But it also acts as a wedding chapel. And we've had quite a few weddings in there over the past 5 or 6 years. And that is something that is really catching on. It is a beautiful little chapel, as you mentioned, with beautiful stained glass windows, and it just underwent a $100,000 renovation.
It's a magnificent architecture, too.
Right.
I mean, it just really is overall very, very pretty.
We just installed a brand new ramp that was over a $100,000 renovation. And it looks, the railing, it just fits right in. It looks like it's been there 100 years.
I know, it's great. Yes. I mean, and it is beautiful. And then, of course, the portrait that's in there, Francis Scott Key, just, really lends itself to a lot of history and just the, just the beauty overall of the cemetery itself. And, I think that is important. I know we're talking about the aesthetics, really, of the cemetery, but, a lot of people, if they're going to be going to visit the grave of a loved one, they want to go to a nice place. They don't want to, necessarily go to a place that is not relaxing, not, not kept up and so forth. And I mean, kudos to the staff at Mount Olivet because they do a wonderful job with that.
Well, I think the important thing is I actually live on the grounds of the cemetery. Plus, I have 2 employees that also live on the grounds. Right. One lives in back of the cemetery, so that helps protect us in the back. And I live up front. And I think by having that, by seeing somebody there, I think that has really detracted from
I
people
think that's
coming in
smart.
there and
Yeah,
vandalizing.
that's
Yes,
definitely
I think
smart.
that's very important. Right.
Smart thing, yeah. Okay, so I know that Mount Olivet obviously is so surrounded by history and all that stuff, and I know that there are some notable events that are coming up, or you're in the midst of, actually. So why don't you talk a little bit about some of the things that are happening right now?
Well, I'm also president of the Francis Scott Key Memorial Foundation, and we are planning, along with the cemetery and the tourism, on having some events. And of course, this is the 200th anniversary of the War of 1812. Well, in 2 years, we're going to have the 200th anniversary of the writing of the national anthem by Francis Scott Key. So that event's coming up in September of 2014. So right now, we're in the planning stages for that. But we have other events during the year. We have our chapel was actually used by the consortium of Frederick through tourism as museums open the 1st of April every year. And so our chapel is considered a museum, so it is open that day. And then we also have Bell and History Day that revolves around. But we also have Museums by Candlelight, which is every December, right before Christmas. The chapel is open with candles.
Very nice.
Everything's lit up. And also, we have a Confederate Memorial Day that's held there every April of every year. So there's events that are happening at the cemetery every year.
And it's such a beautiful place to go to. So why wouldn't people want to take part in some of the events that you do there? I think it's great.
It's warm and friendly, and if people come and they can browse around and look at the different stones.
Yeah, and it's centered just at the edge of, I guess, the downtown area. So you're in a great location.
Yes, we are.
And we're going to be coming to the end here soon. So let's just give folks out there the opportunity to know how to get in touch with Mount Olivet Cemetery. If they want to get involved in pre-planning their burial, or just in general talk about like options and things. Tell them how to get in touch.
Well, they can actually visit the office. We're located at 515 South Market Street. We've been there since 1852.
Oh, my goodness.
I don't think we're going to move.
No, I don't think so.
And you could also phone us. We're 301-662-1164. Or we also have a toll-free number, 888-1164. And you can contact us anytime, and we'll be willing to give you a little tour and show you around.
Right, and also you have a new Facebook page, which people can become a fan and interact with you through the social media out there, and certainly they can get in touch, give you a call, and come out, and I would imagine sit down and just talk about this subject that a lot of people don't necessarily want to talk about. I know. It's something that they have to face at some point, and I think
someday.
Yeah, I think it's great that Mount Olivet Cemetery provides all the services that you do, and you've been here for so long. You're not going anywhere.
No.
You've got plenty of space left.
Yes, we do.
Just a fabulous place to have as a final resting place.
Yeah, even if you're not going to come to do any pre-planning, just come visit us and just ride around. And it's open to the public 365 days a year. Just take a little guided tour yourself.
Or even on a bicycle.
Yes,
I did
bicycle
that,
walk,
with my son years ago. Yeah.
You can walk your dog there. Keep him on a leash if you want to.
I know.
That's fine.
Yeah, so many things to do at Mount Olivet Cemetery. Well, Ron, it was great to have you here today. We really appreciate you coming out and sharing, information about Mount Olivet and, all those things having to do with that daunting subject that a lot of people don't necessarily want to have to deal with, but you all make it easy, so that's the great part.
We try.
Yeah,
thank you for having me. I appreciate
not a problem. And folks, we are done with this segment, but stay tuned for our next program. Bobby Likas Car Clinic is sponsored by RelyLocal member Roddy Creek Automotive. This is Caressa Flannery. Thanks for tuning in today. I'm your host for the RelyLocal Business Spotlight. See you next time.
Thanks for tuning in to RelyLocal Frederick's Business Radio Spotlight right here on AM 1450, The Source. Heard Saturdays at 1:30 p.m., RelyLocal Frederick's Business Radio Spotlight is a movement, a campaign to take us back to what makes America great. Businesses locally owned and operated by you and your neighbors. Thanks for spending your valuable time today with us.